Good morning and welcome to another Chip Chat. And this morning we're going to be looking back at the 8th generation of consoles and specifically the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. And with me today I've got Count. Say hello, Count.
Hi.
And Sully. Say hello, Sully.
Hello.
And what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to talk initially about the launch. And then we're going to look a little bit at the hardware and the cost of the consoles at launch and then further on down the line. And also a little bit of a talk about software and services as well and what we like about the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox and what we don't like about the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox and, you know, where we think they are. So initially, let's talk about that launch and when we first saw the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One back in the days when Don Matrick was in charge at Xbox.
Don Matrick bombshells.
So who wants to talk about that first?
You gotta love proprietary gimmicks. Definitely a lesson that hadn't been learned.
So you're not talking about that wonderful piece of hardware known as Kinect, are you?
Oh no, I wouldn't possibly be bringing that up.
Never heard of it. That's what Microsoft
Definitely
would say.
also not bringing up the mandatory online check-in that they wanted you to do every 24 hours.
And don't forget the best suggestion.
The wonderful statement by Don Matrick that said, if you want an offline console, you can go and buy a 360.
Buy something else. Yeah. And also,
and everyone went, okay, we'll go and buy a PlayStation.
Yeah, we'll go and buy a PlayStation. Or the wonderful attack on pre-owned games that I had almost forgotten the gaming industry were doing. And then, oh no, they're still doing that.
And then Sony put out that little, which has come to bite them on the butt a little bit, actually. The thing where, how do you share your games?
Yeah.
And they did that little video. How you share your games on the PlayStation? There you go. Thanks.
Yeah.
And made Microsoft look like a bunch of mugs because all they were talking about was TV, and our console will be more powerful because of the cloud. Do you remember that? The stuff about the cloud.
God, I'd forgotten about that.
They went down the wrong rabbit hole and they became obsessed with the rabbit hole.
They wanted their console. They didn't want a video games console. They wanted a glorified cable box, basically.
And I mean, it was almost like a comedy double act because Microsoft basically set them up and Sony knocked them down.
Yeah. Because
we had this stuff with sharing games and we had, you know, Microsoft going on about the TV and their whole E3 in 2013. Did they mention games? Because I don't remember them mentioning games. And then Sony came out and talked about games and then came out with that little tagline, for the players, which stuck, you know? And they basically had Microsoft on toast for breakfast. And the Kinect just used so much of the memory of the Xbox as well and slowed it down. And it was already, and we said we're going to talk about hardware, it was already a less powerful system. And I remember looking at the two systems at the time, and there wasn't an awful lot to choose to between them, if I'm being honest. I looked at some games.
No.
And you know, in terms of what they could do, maybe you'd look at a game and there'd be a couple of less blades of grass on the Xbox version than on the PlayStation version, but it wasn't massive.
No.
But the perception was they had, you know, PlayStation had the more powerful console. They didn't have that stupid bloody Kinect. You didn't have to be online all the time. You could share your games. Marketing-wise, for Microsoft, it was a bloody disaster. That's the way I saw it anyway.
Oh, definitely. I think it really set the generation off as it meant to go on. In terms of, you know, how both consoles were perceived. Even as Sony's reputation, well, their hubris grew and their reputation started to go down a bit. You know, I think a lot of people still saw the PS4 as the better console. Even, like, now towards the end of the lifespan, I've heard more people singing the praises of the PS4 than I have singing the praises of the Xbox One. And I think a lot of that's just down to how much of a really just stall off the line they had when they launched it, because they didn't think it through.
Absolutely. And I mean, to put out Sony seemed to learn their lesson, because I was looking at the cost of the PlayStation 3, which came out at $599.
Yeah, $600 in 2006, which is about $800 now.
Yeah, which was just
obscene.
It was ridiculous.
It's quite funny coming from the same company when the original PlayStation launched. On their reveal was just 2 words, $199.
Yeah.
So that was their reveal for the PlayStation 1 at E3. They were just like, this is cheaper than the Nintendo 64. There you go.
And so going from that through to PlayStation 2 and then PlayStation 3 launching at that ridiculous price, that it really did knock them for six. And so they were obviously determined they were going to put the PlayStation 4 out at a reasonable price. And that dropped to, was it $399 when it first launched? That was in dollars, and £350. And I think I've got it written down here. It was $599 Australian dollars.
Yeah, I mean, Sony learnt a lot of hard lessons from the PS3, like price point, hardware, and I think the PS4 is basically the result of them kind of doing what Microsoft did this generation. Like they kind of missed the mark a little bit, price point wise and hardware wise, which is exactly what we've seen with Microsoft in this generation.
With the Series X coming out, they seem to have learnt a lot of the lessons that they should have learnt from the Xbox One, whereas Sony seemed to have done the opposite.
Yeah, or a little bit flat-footed.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say they've made any huge slip-ups or mistakes yet, but they definitely seem a little bit flat-footed. Fun fact, though, and to take you back to 2014, when we were talking about a lot of people were kind of requesting the Kinect be removed from the bundles to get the Xbox cheaper and open up more performance for developers, because, we had that performance gap between the PS4 and the Xbox, and then the Kinect made it even worse. It was 10% of the GPU. That's how much was reserved for the Kinect. Oh. So that's significant when your console's already not as powerful.
Slightly underpowered comparatively, that's... Oh.
So that's when we get Call of Duty Ghosts running at 1080p 60 versus 720p 60, and which is what was happening, which is not good. That does not look good for a next-gen system.
No, that's a big significant difference, and also, like you say, it was the Kinect that did it.
Yeah, I will point out Call of Duty Ghosts running on any system isn't a way to make it look good.
Yeah, don't treat your system like that. Yeah,
you're not wrong.
just putting that out there.
Do you think Call of Duty Cold War is going to be a repeat of Ghosts, or do you think they're going to have a good transition with this Call of Duty to the next gen?
In the nicest possible way, it's Call of Duty. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I get that.
I don't care. I've got someone I work with. He plays the odd bit of games, and it's just Warzone, and he'll just tell me about Warzone, and I'm just like, I don't really care.
They're kind of the FIFA players of the shooters. Like, that's just what they play.
Yeah, pretty much. You have your FIFA bros and you have your COD bros.
Pretty much.
They'll just buy the yearly installment and play nothing but that. I don't get it. There's so many more interesting games out there. Like Hades. Hades is great.
Somebody please tell me what Hades is, because I've heard it get dropped so many times the last couple of weeks. I've not looked it up yet.
It's by Supergiant Games, who did Bastion, Transistor.
Oh yeah, okay.
Higher.
All right.
So that's already a good start. It's all like hand-drawn art, beautiful, lovely stuff. You're the son of Hades and you're trying to escape hell. Or, well, Tartarus, which is Greek hell.
Is it a platformer, an action RPG?
It's a isometric, hacky/roguelite.
Is it 3D?
And it's, you're moving around a 3D space, but it's isometric.
An early
the
God
art is
War
2D. It's really good. Okay. It spent a year in early access.
All right.
On the Epic Games Store.
I'll check this out.
I've played it for I didn't realize it had come out of early access, and I noticed. So before that, I'd had 4 hours on my playtime. In the last week, I'm now up to 15 hours, and considering I worked 6 days last week. It's quite the endorsement. It's a really good game. And I got to the final boss for the first time yesterday, and I was so annoyed that I didn't beat it.
Oh, I've seen this. I think I saw this at an E3 not long ago. Maybe last year.
It's wonderful. And it's such a good story as well. It's all really nicely done.
All right.
It's great.
Was this the one that Jim Sterling was waxing lyrical about as well?
So.
Yes.
Maybe that's where I saw it. All right.
Yeah,
How much does it count?
Not a lot. It's less than £20. I know that.
All right. Is it on Switch?
I don't know if it is yet, but I think they were wanting to port it to Switch if it's not already. It is on Switch.
Oh, beautiful. Done. Sorry, Joe. Take it away again.
No, you're all right. Excuse me. I just want to go back to talk about the hardware, though, for a minute. If you look at what happened with the Xbox and the fact that it was so much less powerful, and then we got to the point where obviously Microsoft decided that they were going to try and do something about it, and we had
they wanted to
the
have
Xbox
the
One
most
S,
powerful console.
yeah, absolutely, and then the X came out. Obviously, the interesting thing there is though that the PlayStation 4 Pro came out actually earlier than the X. I mean, we had the S came out on August 2nd, 2016. Mm-hmm. We had the Slim came out on September the 16th, 2016. So it came out a little bit later. But there was a much bigger gap between the Pro and the X, because I don't know if you guys remember, but when the Pro came out, it came out on in November 2016.
November 2016, the X was November 2017.
Yeah, so there was a whole year's gap.
Yeah. I will point out, as much as I personally prefer the PS4 from this generation, the PS4 Pro is loud as fuck.
Oh my god, it's like a jet engine.
Yeah, literally, it's like a jet engine taking off the fans on that thing. And I'll give it performs really well. It's a good console in terms of performance, but my god, it is obscenely loud.
It is. But do you remember when it first launched, there was a few stories going around, and I actually made a video about this, and I said, this is a load of old bloody nonsense. There were some videos going around about it was melting.
So pretty much the stories that we're seeing now with thermals.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly the stories we're seeing now. And it was utter nonsense. There was some guy put a picture up of the front of the PlayStation 4 Pro. It was a bit melted,
which he probably set fire to with a lighter. Let's be honest.
Exactly right. It looked like a mock-up to me. And then all these people were dogpiling on. All these YouTubers making videos. Oh, is the PlayStation 4 Pro melting? And I was like, this is one fucking picture.
It gets really hot, I'll admit you, because I had it in not an enclosed cabinet, but it was like there wasn't any rear ventilation in this thing. And by the time I'd finished using it, you put your hand near the little space it was in, and that got very hot.
Hey, as long as you can't...
It's not melt your console.
As long as you can't smell that ABS plastic, you're all good.
Yeah, to be honest, the wood would probably set fire to it first because it was a cheap IKEA shelf. So
you keep your room warm with it, but it's not
pretty
gonna
much. Yeah,
and so, I mean, and then obviously when the Xbox One X came out the following year,
the most powerful console in the world.
That had some pretty decent cooling on it.
That tagline just really grates against me.
You know what's amazing about the Series X though is how well it performed. Like it was a beast, and it's still very, very capable. But what's amazing is it was still rocking those Jaguar cores.
Absolutely,
and crushing games.
Yeah.
I mean, I still really rate the Xbox One X. I still enjoy using that console, especially now they've started, sorting out the bloody UI as well, which is a little bit faster now.
Trash. I remember at the time going, no, it's not that bad. Yeah, it was terrible.
To be fair, the PS5's UI has been revealed this week, and I'm not really a fan of it.
That's an interesting one, actually, because
the reason I'm not a fan of it is because it's fucking tiny. They want you to be playing that on a 4K screen, and the UI is just so small on all of that screen. It's ridiculous.
The other one that interests me about that, though, was that a lot of the stuff they were showing where you're going out of the game and it's got all these connections to what other people are doing within that game, and you can jump in and all this kind of stuff. That requires always online, which I think is really interesting because it harks back to what Microsoft were trying to do.
Yeah, I think the funny thing is, I don't think always online is now such. It's not a taboo anymore. It was in 2013. However,
that's exactly
now
the point.
It isn't.
Have they spoken about, because I didn't actually watch the reveal, did they speak about anything with regards to integration with services like Netflix and YouTube?
Not that I remember.
Okay, because what I really liked, I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure it was the Series X because I was really hyped for it, but that you could pin channels, not just YouTube, but certain channels to your desktop.
That'd be interesting.
Pretty sure it was the Xbox. It might have been another device. I feel like it was the Series X when they've been covering all of their UI and integration and stuff, but that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff similar to that with the PlayStation 5, although I think it's more, more. I don't know if it's to do with YouTube specifically. I mean, it may well be that you can add YouTube channels in, but I do know that all the integration with, other people are playing the game and you can view clips and all that kind of stuff. And pretty much as you pause the game, it comes up along the bottom.
Actually,
of all these different options.
Never mind. It was LG's new line of TVs. Forget everything I just said.
I have seen, I think it is a Linus Tech Tips video on at least one of the new range of LG TVs, and they do look pretty damn sick.
Yeah.
Like, if you're in the market for a TV, this is a good year.
I want that
to be getting a new TV.
Is it the CX LG OLEDs, but the 48-inch that's releasing soon? I want to get that for my next gen.
I've got my eyes on one of those things as well.
Very nice.
It'll have to be next year, probably, though.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean,
we're not talking about TVs.
We got a wide-ranging conversation as ever.
We did.
With the consoles, though, I mean, what would you say? I mean, in terms of obviously we had the heat and all the rest of it. I remember looking at the Pro, and I remember looking at the X, and obviously the X was the most powerful console.
The most powerful console.
But the problem with the X is that it didn't really have much that came out when it launched. And so we had that same problem again with Microsoft. I mean, I know for me... I remember when the original Xbox came out, the Xbox One came out, not the actual original Xbox, but when the first Xbox One came out with the Kinect and all the other stuff, I remember, it had all that bad press, but then I look at the games that came out at the time, and actually the games that came out on the Xbox One in the first year weren't all that bad compared to what we were seeing from the PlayStation. I think they were on a par with one another. Neither of them were particularly good. I mean, you've got, Dead Rising on the Xbox, Killzone on PlayStation 4, Forza Motorsport 5, Knack, Killer Instinct, and Rise, Son of Rome. So neither of them had much to write home about.
No, there's a reason that I didn't buy either of them in launch year. There's a very good reason.
Well, that's been the story.
I mean, it was 2015, really, before we saw anything any good.
Oh, definitely.
That's been the story of Xbox for most of this generation. They've had great hardware after the X, and they've had great services that's been improving year after year, but it's taken a long time for the games to catch up.
For me, it took until 2017 before I actually looked at the PS4 and Xbox One at either of them and thought, you know what, I might actually want to buy one of these. The reason I say 2017 is because that's when Horizon Zero Dawn was released.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was the first game of this generation that made me actually look up and go, do you know what? I actually kind of want to get on it. It's that and maybe Bloodborne as well.
I think that was the one for a lot of people was Bloodborne, and that was 2015.
Because was it 2015? Okay. Yeah. I think Bloodborne annoyed me more than anything because it was a Souls-like that was exclusive to the PS4. And I was just like, but I have a PC and I want to play it on that.
Bloodborne
Horizon Zero Dawn was the first thing that actually made me go, oh, wait, no, I actually kind of want a PlayStation now. Because I didn't get an Xbox, and I've said this a few times. I don't know if I said it on here before, but I know I've said it on Gamecast a few times. The reason I haven't bought an Xbox One or an Xbox One X is because I have a gaming PC. I don't need an Xbox if you have a gaming PC. It's not necessary. Anything
Absolutely.
you could possibly want on the Xbox is available on Windows because of Microsoft being good with, multi-platform.
But I think we've covered this before, though, in as much as
excruciating detail.
yeah, but Microsoft don't care, and whether you're playing it on PC or whether you're playing it on Xbox.
They just want you to be playing their games and paying the money, preferably for Game Pass.
Yeah, they want your monthly money, not your one-off money.
Exactly.
This all started changing for me in 2016, because I actually remember back then when Quantum Break came out, and there was a massive hoo-ha. I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a massive hoo-ha about Quantum Break when it first released, because everyone was saying,
everyone being a bit like meh about
hot and cold, yeah.
No, that's the point. Is people were really annoyed. A lot of people were not. They didn't think the game was particularly good. I actually think it's a much better game than people gave it credit for, because it had that kind of black mark over it because of all the TV stuff and the integration with that.
Yeah, they're trying to make it a TV show. Like, they're trying to do both things, whereas they would have been better doing one or the other.
Absolutely, I agree. But the other thing that caused people to get up in arms, particularly Xbox fanboys, was the fact that it came day and date to the PC. And if I'm right, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think it was the first console exclusive where they did that. Yeah, and that to me was their nod to the future. That was them telling us where they were heading.
Also, funnily enough, Quantum Break was the best-selling new IP published by Microsoft since the launch of the Xbox One, although the record was broken 2 years later by Sea of Thieves.
Okay.
It was broken by Sea of Thieves.
Apparently bloody so. Also, I wouldn't have pegged Quantum Break being that either.
Well, no, I mean,
because I remember it launched and I thought it was just a bit of a flop, to be honest. I didn't think it was that particularly well selling or well received from what I remember.
Well, maybe it
at the
tells
time.
us something about how well Microsoft's games were selling at that point.
Maybe. Well, funny thing, on Wikipedia, the 8th generation of consoles article, they've got the best-selling games from each console, and this would be best-selling exclusive game. If you actually just go best-selling game on PS4 and Xbox One, it's GTA 5, because of course it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still.
But best-selling exclusive title for the PS4 is Uncharted 4 with 15 million units as of March last year.
Not surprising, really.
For Xbox One, and a lot of people probably wouldn't remember this, it's console exclusive to the Xbox One. It's PUBG with 8 million units.
Where did Halo 5 sit in there?
PUBG?
Yeah, because it's and Microsoft picked it up to publish it.
Yeah.
Also, the disparity in figures here is quite interesting, because GTA 5's number of copies sold on the PS4 was 20 million, but on the Xbox One it was 8.7 million.
That doesn't surprise me, though, because...
Oh, no, it doesn't surprise me, because the Xbox One sold significantly fewer units, but also that's quite a disparity in figures.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking almost 2-to-1 in terms of console sales, but there's also the added element of the fact that GTA, to some degree, is more associated with PlayStation than Xbox as well.
Yeah, because I think GTA 4 was the first GTA game to come to an Xbox system, from what I remember. I might be wrong, but that's the first one I remember them actively going, this is also on Xbox. And I remember PlayStation fanboys getting angry about it for reasons that I don't quite understand.
Oh, like when Titanfall came to the PlayStation and everyone lost their shit.
Yeah.
Oh, because I can't play it now on my Xbox because they've got it on PlayStation. Excuse me?
What?
Hey?
You what?
Don't talk wet, man. You know, that whole fanboy nonsense.
Oh yeah.
It twists my melon.
Were these numbers?
Do you know what the funny thing is though? Best-selling Switch game outsells them all.
Yeah, Animal
That
Crossing.
doesn't surprise me either. To be
Mario
honest,
Kart 8 Deluxe is the best-selling Nintendo exclusive IP on the Switch, with 26.7 million units.
Wow.
Yep, and Animal Crossing is just behind that on 22.4 million units.
and that's even with its problems with saves. Have they sorted those out yet? By the way,
Yeah, it's all fine.
So fun
Also,
fact,
considering
Joe,
that Animal Crossing was released in March this year as well.
yeah,
Fun fact, Joe, no Halo in those numbers for this generation.
yeah. Again, that doesn't surprise me. I mean,
7.6
Halo
wow.
5 was
Sold for
not
Halo 5.
that great. You know,
Oh no, Halo 5 is number 10 on that list for Xbox games.
Just for Xbox, that is shocking.
5
Yeah.
million units sold.
If your mascot, like imagine Mario being number 10 on a Nintendo list.
Yeah.
yeah.
To be fair, Legend of Zelda is Zelda Breath of the Wild is actually 4th on the Nintendo list, and I was incredibly surprised that it was 4th.
I think that you can give that a little bit of slack there because there's a lot of good competition in the Nintendo catalog. Whereas
Nintendo's is Mario Kart 8,
Yep.
Animal Crossing, Smash Bros,
yes, that's
Breath
stiff.
of the Wild, Sword and Shield, Mario Odyssey, Pokemon Let's Go, Super Mario Party, Splatoon 2, and New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, which is a mouthful.
Yeah. You know what's ridiculous though, is that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sold so well and it was just like a re-release.
Oh yeah, it's a
Yeah.
re-release of the Wii U copy, which is also the best-selling
Free
game on the Wii U
money.
at 8.42
And I own
million
both.
units. I do find it funny, the best-selling Wii U game outsells the best-selling Xbox One game.
Worrying.
That is quite damning, isn't it?
I mean,
really?
as you say it's damning, I think it's more of a indictment of, probably a larger proportion of Wii U owners bought Mario Kart 8.
Yeah. Better software
Yeah.
attachment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The interesting thing there as well is that I wonder, maybe not early on, but I wonder how much Xbox sales, and this is going to be the case moving forward as well, how much Xbox sales are skewed by Game Pass.
Mm-hmm.
This is true, because they may get more sales from people going, well, Game Pass is a better.
Not really
option
any
compared to-
excuse for Halo 5 though, because I don't think Game Pass was available then. 2015, was it?
No.
No.
Good point.
So, what's PlayStation's equivalent called? I can't. PlayStation.
Plus?
PlayStation Now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was actually making a video about that yesterday, which I've got to re-record because I cocked it up. But,
Yay! Yeah, I'd argue. Well, I'd say Game Pass is probably a better service
Oh, yeah.
than
Hands down.
PlayStation Now. So that's if there's a lot of people who will just buy the console and the subscription service, and if that's what they're going to do, they're probably going to be more tempted with the Xbox because it's a better service.
That's pretty much what I'm going to do.
I agree. You know what though? Playing through yesterday, going through, I spent a fair few hours on PlayStation Now yesterday, and I've been subscribed to it for a while because I did it because I wanted to do a video. And I have to say, PlayStation Now's actually better than I was expecting. And I dabbled with it 18 months ago, and I wasn't impressed at all. But the price of it has come down quite a lot now. It's gone from, I think it was $12.99 a month. Now it's $8.99 a month, or you can get it for 50 quid a year for the whole year. And you get it on PC and you get it on your PlayStation. Now, the front end for PlayStation Now on PC is bloody diabolical. It's rubbish. The front end on the PlayStation 4 is actually a lot better. You've got search options and all the rest of it. The issue for me, the biggest issue for me, is to do with save games, which you have this with PlayStation anyway. Save games aren't seamless like they are on the Xbox. But I actually was quite impressed with PlayStation Now. The streaming onto my PC, I was playing Days Gone yesterday on my PC, and it was playing pretty well. It didn't look as good as it does playing it off the disc, because I had it on the disc as well and I was swapping backwards and forwards and having a look. It didn't look as good, but it played fairly well. I mean, there wasn't too much lag. I've got a decent connection, so obviously that comes into it. So actually, I was quite impressed with PlayStation Now. I think the biggest thing with PlayStation Now that's holding it back, and I can understand why Sony are doing this, is that they're not putting games day and date on there like we're getting with Game Pass, and that's what really makes Game Pass.
I think every sort of 2 weeks, reliably, you can find more games coming up on Game Pass.
Absolutely.
Whereas PlayStation Now probably not so much.
And like I say, with the first party stuff, it's all day and date. So, as we go down the line, I firmly believe that Microsoft are going to start putting out some good games this generation. I think we're going to see a decent number of them as well.
Well, you'd hope so, considering the amount of bloody studios they bought.
Well, yeah, and they've spent pretty much the whole of this generation putting out the occasional good game, but mostly pretty average.
They've spent the last 2 or 3 years just acquiring studios.
Yeah.
I think the reason for that is to make up for, their perceived lack of exclusive titles last generation. And
Absolutely.
they want to be on top of that, and the best way to do that is to buy a load of good studios, like they bought Bethesda, which I still can't quite believe.
That one came out of left field for everyone. I think the overriding feeling for most people was complete shock.
Unreal.
I still don't quite know what to feel about that, to be honest. I'm really like, what?
Unreal.
For me, I was happier that Microsoft had bought them than, say, EA.
Oh,
or
yeah, like
that.
if Activision Blizzard had bought them, I'd just be like, oh, well, that's the worst thing that could have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the fact that Microsoft have bought them means that the games are going to be across multiple platforms. I don't subscribe to the idea that they're going to put their games all out on PlayStation and Switch.
Oh, probably not, but
I don't hold that at all. But you're certainly going to get them on Xbox. You're going to get them on PC. They'll be in xCloud as well, or game streaming, whatever they're calling it these days. So the games are going to be more available.
Yeah, they wanted to launch an iPhone app, aren't they, as well?
Yeah, it looks like what they're doing with that now is they're going to try and circumvent Apple, because Apple are trying to stop them, aren't they, by saying you can't have your app on there because we can't control what games.
Yeah, I think I mean, a lot of that's going to depend on what happens with the Epic Games lawsuit, but also.
But they're also looking to do it like use it in a browser now, pretty much like you get with
browser. So circumvents.
Yeah.
Because you can't tell people what they can and can't do on their browser. Like that's
absolutely.
That would be unreasonable.
So they're pretty much just working on a workaround, I guess. Because I don't think Apple's going to let up on this. I think they're going to make this stick.
Oh, this could run for years and years. Yeah. The only way around this now is to just, like you say, come up with a workaround and putting it in a browser. I mean, that's what Stadia does now. If you want to go and play Stadia on your PC, you just go into your browser, type in Stadia, bring up your account, and you can play.
And you know what? Maybe Google foresaw all of this, and that's why they went with the browser.
Yeah,
you got a browser, you got Stadia. Not that you'd want it, but you got it.
I'm going to say, why would you want Stadia?
Well, absolutely. I mean, arguably, that'd be an interesting one to try, actually. Maybe you could... I'm going to have to try this now. You could maybe go to your Xbox, load up a browser in your Xbox, and load Stadia...
Joe, let me
on your Xbox.
Let me blow your mind,
That'd be a perverse thing to do, wouldn't it?
Let me blow...
That's a step too far.
Let me blow your mind, Joe. Xbox, Cloud, xCloud... via browser, PS5.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can see that happening. And then, via the back door, you've got Xbox on the PlayStation.
Nintendo Switch. Is there a browser? There's not a browser there. If they had a browser, oh my God. I would be on there right now trying that.
Oh,
yeah. I actually made a video ages ago coming up with some wild speculation saying that Nvidia Shield might try and get themselves on the Switch, Yeah. And obviously never happened, but that would have been interesting too. But yeah, this idea of getting stuff on a browser, you can put it anywhere. Did you see someone the other day had put xCloud on their fridge?
Yeah. As it they were playing Doom Eternal on it or something. That's pretty great.
Could you imagine the latency
I love it.
on that panel in that fridge? Like, that'd be terrible. The refresh
Speaking
rate.
of Doom on stupid things,
Yeah.
I saw a video this week of someone playing. You know, you've seen Doom being played on a calculator before.
Oh, I've seen
Yeah.
this.
This Doom being played on a calculator, being powered by about 30 potatoes in a potato battery array.
Okay, I didn't see this one. That's incredible. The one that I'd seen,
I love it, but also
amazing.
why?
Yeah. The one that I'd
Yeah,
seen
absolutely.
was the first Doom running on a pregnancy test kit LCD screen.
I've seen that. That's really weird.
I love it if you
Oh,
just
I haven't seen
you have
that
to
one.
beat the level before you get the answer.
Are you pregnant? You won't find out until you defeat the icon of sin.
Why do you keep failing the level? Because I don't want to know.
Oh, God.
The thing is, if it says that it's positive, does that mean you're going to give birth to demon spawn?
You get to go.
I
No,
mean, it's
you get to
a
go to
child,
level
so
2
yeah.
and find out if you're having twins or not.
Oh dear. Oh,
Right.
I've
Well,
completely
that
lost
was
train
off
of.
topic.
Yeah, because we never ever go off topic. do we?
No.
The other thing I wanted to touch on briefly, though, is backwards compatibility, because obviously we've got the talk of now we've got backwards compatibility coming to the PlayStation 5,
Sort
of. And I wonder about backwards compatibility on the Xbox, because obviously it wasn't there at launch, and
But
I think they
patched
announced
it
it.
in.
Yeah, 2015, and
Yeah.
at that time, PlayStation was saying, we can't do it, and I think their idea was they were going to try and push PlayStation Now instead, because you
Because
get,
you put
PlayStation.
the services on PlayStation Now, and then if you pay for it, you can access all these old games.
Yeah, absolutely. So it took a completely different approach, and I think Microsoft's approach is the better one, if I'm being honest.
Oh yeah.
And I mean,
if you own the game, and this other new system is capable of it, then why not? Like, I don't understand why anyone would really be against that.
Do you think, though? I mean, I think it's a great idea, and I love backwards compatibility, and I've always been an advocate for it, because I've always been an advocate for the idea of having these games available to people down the line.
Preservation.
And,
yeah,
absolutely right. I mean, I always think about when you've got old music coming out, and they have to go searching, and they go and find some collector somewhere who's got a copy, because the studio doesn't keep a copy anymore. They've left it in a bloody basement somewhere, and it's all got water damage, and so you end up relying on fans and
as a Doctor Who
enthusiasts.
fan, I feel that very heavily.
Absolutely, and these companies don't seem to have any sort of sense of interest a lot of the time in preservation of what is an art form. I know some people say, "Oh, well, gaming isn't an art form," but it is. It's an art form. In a broad sense, I suppose you could look at it, but I think it's every bit as much of an art form as film or novels or any other form, or paintings, whatever.
Yeah.
It just happens to be a newer one, and so a lot of people have got kind of snobbery towards it. But that aside, I look at what happened with the Game Pass, not Game Pass, with backwards compatibility on the Xbox. And I wonder if it was a bit of a band-aid to some extent with Microsoft, because
It's probably
they
a
weren't...
case of, oh shit, we're doing really badly. We need to do something to make it seem more appealing.
Well, do you remember in 2017 when they announced that they were going to have backwards compatibility for the original Xbox?
I think it's one of their
and they
greatest
announced
strengths.
Crimson Skies, and it was the biggest cheer for Microsoft at E3 that year.
One of their biggest strengths now, especially now that they're not only supporting the previous generation of games, but they're enhancing them too. Like Fusion Frenzy, an original launch game for the Xbox, is getting enhanced for the Series X. It's going to have HDR baked in and all that. That's incredible.
I swear you've mentioned this before.
That's incredible. I think they have a list count for everything that's getting enhanced for back compat.
Oh, you have mentioned Fusion Frenzy before, and I got really confused by the box art. Oh, God, it's so weird.
I've got it on the shelf behind me.
Yeah.
Why?
So
what
pop
the
it in.
fuck is it?
Pop it in. It's a party game.
Is it?
Yeah, you'd love it. You love shit games.
Yeah, I can't deny
ones.
that. Give me.
So, I mean,
I'm just going to be right back. I want to check my cat and my guinea pig.
Okay.
I'll be back.
Your cat and your guinea pig.
Cat.
It's snack
To
time.
check your cat hasn't eaten your guinea pig.
Pretty much, yeah.
Make sure the cat's behaving itself. Yeah, Joe, you should absolutely stick it. I think that would be a cool video for your channel, just popping in like just some old games and doing like live reaction to like how they run on the Series X, like pop Fusion Frenzy in, for example, or Project
What
Gotham
would be
Racing.
really good would be to put in the original, because I've got an original Xbox, put in the original,
side by side,
make a copy, get that footage and then look at the new footage.
That would be great.
Next to each other.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
The thing that gets me, Sully, is that, you look at something like Fusion Frenzy. I remember when they were talking about Fusion Frenzy when they did the backwards compatibility for it, and it got upgraded then. So it's been upgraded already, and now it's getting another upgrade for the Xbox Series X. So you can see this going down the line. You can see them constantly iterating on this and making them better with each gen.
At what point does backwards compatibility via like Xbox, learning AI, at what point does it almost frickin' remake or remaster the game for next gen? Like how close do we get to that? It does it on the fly. Like baking in.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it?
Baking in like, HDR and all that kind of stuff to games that were never intended to have it by the developer.
Yeah.
Like that's incredible.
I just think all this stuff that Microsoft are doing with this is fantastic, and I cannot praise them enough for this.
Yeah.
I mean, I am one of these people who goes back and plays old games. I've got an Xbox in my front room, an original Xbox in my front room, and I sit down and I play those games.
Original Xboxes.
One that
I've got a lot of them. Did you say?
Yes.
I've only got 2.
I swear you had like 6, or is that 360s?
I've got
6 360s.
Oh Christ, I don't know how many 360s I've got. I kind of lost count of how many 360s I've got.
Oh my god, no, why?
I did have more. I would have had more original Xboxes, but I have actually had to buy them back again or get them back again.
You had to buy all 6 back.
No one.
Was what?
Yeah, I went and hunted them down and bought the originals again. No, my original Xbox, when the 360 came out, not long after the 360 came out, because there was some backwards compatibility, quite a lot of backwards compatibility actually on the 360. I don't know if you remember.
I remember putting the
thinking
Halo C in. Yeah,
exactly right. So I gave my original Xbox away. I gave it to Dawn's, my partner's uncle. And he had it for some time, and then he gave it to, I think my partner's cousin had it for a while, and then they sold it on, and I don't know where it's gone now. But then a few years ago, my mate gave me his original Xbox, which we modded at the same time with Executor mods, which is interesting, given that the Executor guys, some of them have just been arrested. So I had his, and I've got that in the office. It's just beneath me as I'm talking. I had his original Xbox with an Executor mod, and that's got a 2 terabyte hard drive in it. So I've got that. But initially I got rid of it. I got rid of my Xbox because I thought, well, I don't need it, and I can play the Xbox games that I've got on the 360. And so then I got the 360, and God knows how many of those I got, because with the red ring and stuff, and they sent them to me. And I actually, I've told you this before, I actually ended up getting in touch with Don Matrick directly because I got fucking pissed off with them going wrong. I made a bloody nuisance of myself. And
I don't recall that. What'd you get?
Did
he tell you to buy an offline device?
Well, I like to think that I was directly responsible for him leaving Microsoft, and hence that's where we are now.
In the nicest possible way, you probably weren't. Let's be honest.
No, I'm not that deluded. Yeah, he wakes up in the middle of the night thinking about me. Yeah, that's right.
Wakes up in a cold sweat. That bastard cost me my job.
I think he actually moved on and did quite well for himself. Actually, I think I researched him. Yeah.
I mean, he's an executive of a video game company, so probably.
Yeah, he went and did something in the video game industry. I think he's moved on from that place since too.
Well, that's what these executives do, don't they? They move on and they do all right.
He until 2015, he was the
head of Xbox.
No, Zynga.
Oh, that was it. Okay.
He moved from Xbox to Zynga,
yep.
And then in 2015 he left.
Didn't Zynga go under?
No, Zynga haven't gone under. They're doing a lot of shit with like horrible practices. Yeah, and at this point, no, he's done nothing since that. Apparently, he's probably just living a quiet life.
Just retired, yeah.
Piles of money.
Yeah, he would have gotten huge.
Well, that's the problem with these guys is they never actually suffer anything, do they? Not that I want him to suffer anything bad or anything.
Well, not him, but there's certainly a few that I wouldn't mind. But let's not get into that.
Yeah.
Zynga in June 2020 are buying Turkish developer Peak for $1.8 billion. That's the latest news from Zynga.
Blimey.
Yeah. That's got nothing to do with the PS4 and the Xbox One.
And yeah, talking of which, shall we just bring this back round and give our final thoughts? Because I think we're getting towards the end of this. And I mean, Count, do you want to go with this? What are your overarching or overriding thoughts on the PlayStation 4? I know you haven't had an Xbox, but are you happy with the PlayStation 4? Are you glad you got one? Did you enjoy the games? Because the games have been pretty good this generation from PlayStation once they got going.
Definitely. It took a while to get going, which is why it took me so long to get one. But once I got one, I don't think I've been disappointed with it particularly. I think the only thing I wasn't particularly thrilled with was PlayStation Plus, but that's just meh. It's a whatever service for me. I only used half of it anyway. And the games really made it. Like I played Spider-Man through to the end. I really enjoyed playing that. Played a fair amount of other games on there as well. But Spider-Man was the one that really just... I think that was the reason I got it in the end, because I really wanted to play Spider-Man.
I do remember you talking about
I think it's 2018 I got mine, because I definitely got it quite late.
Spider-Man's the game I enjoyed the most this generation.
I'd say that's probably, certainly, it was my game of the year that year, definitely, from what I remember. And it's probably the game I would say that, if you put a gun to my head and told me to pick a PlayStation 4 game, that's probably what I'd pick. But yeah, it's been a generation of, particularly in the latter half, the PlayStation just having a really solid lineup of games. Admittedly, that's been taken over for me a little bit by the Switch. I think the Switch has done a lot better in the last couple of years. But the PlayStation 4 for most of its run had a pretty good lineup of games. I'm certainly not really any complaints in terms of that.
Yeah, and that's basically what it all comes down to. I mean, even for me, who's pretty much a hardware guy, I love my hardware. And I think you're the same, Sully. Yep. You like hardware.
Yep.
I think we all like hardware, but at the same time, the hardware's only as good as the software you're putting on it.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And so, for me, I would say that that's where the PlayStation shone. I don't think it's any news to anyone that that's the big take-home from PlayStation this generation. I think in terms of its services, I as I said before, I don't think PlayStation now is up there with Game Pass in terms of the quality and just the ease of use. I would say that thing is something that I think people underestimate with Xbox. That ability to just pick up and play. Yeah. It is seamless. You sit at a PlayStation. You sit at a PlayStation. That would be good. You sit at an Xbox and you play your game. You move to PC. You play your game. You take it out on the go. You stick it on your phone. You play the game. It's the same save, you know, and neither PlayStation or Nintendo with the Switch can match that. So in terms of that service, that is the thing. That ease of use of just being able to pick up a piece of hardware and just carry on playing.
Yeah, I mean, I'd argue the Switch has probably matched that, because you can just literally pick up the console and play with it.
Well, there is that, but the problem I have with the Switch is that when you get more than one Switch and you start trying to take the games with you, and
the problems you've had with that,
yeah, that starts getting a bit irritating, to say the least. And they could have done that a lot better.
Yeah.
So that to me, that's when I look at, if you Switch aside, if you look at the PlayStation and the Xbox, I would say the big standout for Xbox is the kind of ease of use element in terms of being able to use it, certainly across multiple consoles, and for family members and all that kind of stuff.
Which, when you think about how they started off the generation, is quite ironic, because they've really turned it around.
Oh yeah,
absolutely right. Yeah,
massive 180 with it.
Yeah, so they are very different, and I think Sully mentioned this in the previous video, that Microsoft and Sony, more so than ever, really, are taking almost divergent approaches to their way of marketing games, giving us games. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I mean, I think that having that choice and having that difference, a very clear difference between them, although there is some convergence as well. I think if you look at Game Pass and you look at PlayStation Now, there is a certain amount of convergence going on there, whereas, PlayStation Now started as a streaming service and has now got downloads. Xbox Game Pass started as a download service and now you've got streaming. So that there is a certain amount of convergence going on there as well. But they are offering very different approaches. Sony really are seeming to go with this generational thing, whereas Microsoft have completely scrapped that idea. I think because they had to, really. I don't think they can compete with Sony in that area. I think it's a different approach. Yeah. But so yeah, I think they both offer quite a lot. I mean, what about you, Sully? I mean, what are your overarching feelings of this generation? What do you take away from it?
Well, I think messaging is key, and I think definitely when we look at how this generation started, simple is best. Your audience are gamers, and Sony kept the messaging simple. They told you it was a gamer box, and they made everything as easy as possible when it was about the games. Microsoft did the complete opposite. It got convoluted. It wasn't just about the games, and it all blew up in their face. So I think, I think it's all in the messaging. Simple is best. And I think Sony has done that best this generation.
Absolutely.
And I think it's pretty evident now that I think Microsoft have found that right formula for trying to push things forward aggressively with all these different services and blah, blah, blah. And they found the right messaging for all of that. And I think Sony's struggling now just towards the tail end of this generation. Like, they're still beating that same drum, but it's kind of, I think, falling a little bit flat in terms of the value proposition going forward. But I mean, certainly when you look at this generation, I think it's hands down. It's Sony all the way. Certainly for 3/4 of this generation. It's a hard one to toss up because Microsoft have had such a huge turnaround though.
Oh yeah, it's night and day compared to the start and the end of the generation.
It's very hard to sum up because they really have done a 180, and credit to them. But again, like Count said, it's a lot of it is in your software, and this generation has kind of been more like a prelude to the next for Microsoft. It really,
I'd agree with that.
And that's just it's just kind of how it feels. So
it's like they've been getting the hardware and the services ready for the software of what they're going to be doing next time.
They've spent a long time lining up their ducks, and I think they're just starting to push them over now. So yeah, and I mean, like, Microsoft and Xbox have had games this generation, but let's be honest, like, they're not quite as matured or necessarily to the same caliber as a lot of Sony's games from like Naughty Dog, for example, or Spider-Man. Like, Gears of War 5, this is the 5th game in the series, and it's not necessarily getting any better or worse. And I think you could argue that, like, just how Sony and their studios have crafted the games. Like, I think it's a different caliber again. Like, if you want to talk about AAA and quadruple A, Sony already own that quadruple A space.
A new IP as well. You know,
yeah.
we talked about Horizon Zero Dawn earlier. You come out with a new IP of that caliber.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the games of the generation.
Yeah.
You know, across all consoles.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, in terms of this generation, it's been interesting the last couple of years just to watch Microsoft pivot and turn the ship around, but it's hands down been Sony's generation. And it's on them to keep it next gen. So we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, Sony have everything to lose.
Yeah.
They really do. And I'm not if I were them, I wouldn't be entirely confident in my position.
I agree.
We'll see what happens, I suppose.
I think giving us backwards compatibility for PlayStation 4 is a big deal. I think that there would have been a massive misstep if they hadn't have given us that. Because with the install base, it makes it a damn sight easier to transfer across to a PlayStation 5 and take your games with you. I mean, you know, I made a video about a month ago having a go at Sony for their approach to backwards compatibility. And at the time, I had a go at them for not giving us clear messaging, going back to what you said just a minute ago there, Sully, and not letting us know, you know, how many games were going to be backwards compatible and all the rest of it. They've since come out and they've clarified it, and it's like you can count the number of games that aren't going to play on the PlayStation 5 on the fingers of one hand.
Yeah.
So it's literally everything, or almost literally everything, is going to be available to play on the PlayStation 5.
Even Life of Black Tiger?
Even Life of Black Tiger. It wasn't on the list of games that won't play. So if you're a massive Life of Black Tiger fan, you're sorted, mate.
What I find most concerning about PS5 moving into next generation is a lot of this backwards compatibility, some kind of Game Pass service. What was it? PlayStation wasn't now. A lot of it feels reactionary to Microsoft and what I think Sony know people want, but I'm worried that it could be a bit of a last-minute scramble. So how are all these services and value going to come together once we're actually in the PlayStation 5 generation? Like, how expansive will backwards compatibility be? I feel like it could pale a little bit in comparison to what Microsoft is doing. Like, Sony will check the boxes, but are they doing it on the scale that Microsoft are?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I don't think... Well, I'll be surprised if the backwards compatibility for PlayStation 4 will be as comprehensive in terms of, you know, you were saying this about what Microsoft offers with the, you know, you're talking about Fusion Frenzy and the fact that it's going to be uprated for the next gen. And I don't think Sony necessarily are going to give that. What I do think, though, is the fact, you know, with their install base, having just that ability to take your games and play them on the PlayStation 5 is a big deal. And I think a lot of people will be happy with that. Certainly, you know, a lot of people who've got PlayStation 4s will happily move across to the PlayStation 5 and take their games with them, especially if they're not the sort of people who also have an Xbox One or an Xbox Series X or whatever. If you're getting the Xbox Series X and you're putting, you know, say, I don't know, Red Dead 2 in a Series X, that's going to be improved, or you would expect it to be improved quite considerably in the X, in the Series X.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure we're going to see the same thing with the PlayStation 5, but if you haven't got the X, you're not going to know, you know, so you're not going to care in many instances. So that's the only thing for me. I think that if Sony can make enough of the people who are currently PlayStation 4 owners just move across, then I think they'll have done their job. The problem there for me, though, is that Microsoft are very much looking to expand the market, whereas I'm not sure that Sony will be expanding the market. You know, they're not going to go beyond necessarily that install base they've currently got in a big way, whereas I think Microsoft are looking to expand out to a much bigger audience.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it'd be interesting to see how that works out.
Very interesting.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Just interesting.
Silence.
Decent wrap up.
Yeah, I think we're done. So I'm gonna finish it there. And thanks for being on, guys.
No,
Do
thanks
you
for
want to tell
having
us where we can find you?
Take it away, Count.
Not really anywhere at the moment. I'm not really.
You've got
doing
your
anything.
Discord and you've got Twitter.
Yeah, I've got Twitter. I sell photos at spectrumphotography.co.uk. You can buy some prints of my photography.
And I'll put a link in. If you give me links, I'll put links into that.
That's all I want to plug at the moment.
And Sully?
You can find me predominantly at Yesterday's Tech on Instagram. If you like retro hardware and video games, that's where we're at. We primarily focus on Nintendo customization and parts reproduction. And we're also opening a website. So if you want to go over there and pre-sign for its launch, that's at yesterdaystech.com.au, which will have heaps of retro gaming apparel. So like hoodies, t-shirts, all custom hand-drawn by us. And the website will also be selling little bits and pieces of aftermarket stuff for your Game Boys. So go check that out.
And I'll put a link into that as well.
That'll be
if you're interested.
Yeah, and lastly, sorry, that hasn't launched yet, so that'll be launching with aiming for sometime in December.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll make sure that I put a link in,
No
and when it's up and ready, people can go and have a look, and I'll be having a look myself. So, yeah. Anyway, that's a good time if it's coming up in December. Maybe people can get some stuff in time for Christmas, hopefully.
That's the hope, but it's a crazy time with COVID, so shipping and all that.
Yeah,
don't go there aiming for Christmas, that's for sure.
All right. And I think that's done. I mean, you guys know where to find me, so I'm not going to plug myself too much here. You're already on my channel, so I'm going to disappear and do what I usually do.
Like and subscribe, guys. Hit the bell icon.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to do that. All the usual stuff.
Yeah, what he said.
And I'm going to grab a cup of tea because I've just finished my drink, so I need another one. And I will speak to you guys in the next one. Thanks for being on, guys.
No worries.